Okay, so now I want to talk to you a little bit about the why I chose to get to know Jesus. I think that it's important to understand the why because understanding the why helps you to kind of keep focused on what your end goal is. You know what I mean? So for me, the reason why I chose to continue my journey or start my journey on getting to know Jesus, it all started with me having a lot of challenges in my life. As I mentioned, I'm 40 years old and I've been on this journey for a while, literally, like I could easily say about 10 years. So this isn't a fast journey for for you guys. This is not a crash course or anything like that. It is literally about building a relationship with God so that you have that strong connection and you're able to gain wisdom versus just having knowledge about Jesus and what he expects from us. So I started out seeking more and more information about Jesus. Like, not information in the forms of like breaking down the Bible, what does this mean? What does this mean? But more so information about, you know, how he felt about me and the things that I was doing in my life. So, the reason why I was feeling that way is because I had a lot going on during that time when I first started my journey. It was career changes going on. There was changes in my family. It was growing and there was just a lot of avenues. I was in school, in college, going back and forth about whether or not I wanted to go to achieve my master's degree or just maintain with my bachelor's degree. So I'm a planner. So even in high school, I had a plan. I was going to go to college. I was going to major in this, and I was going to have a house within X amount of years. So I had my life planned out to the T. And I was doing everything that everyone would tell me to do research wise. You know, I educated myself on how to purchase a house. I educated myself on my job. I educated myself on, you know, the career paths that I was choosing. But I felt like I wasn't going anywhere because I kept getting roadblocks. So, like, even with purchasing a home, I was told, you know, I wasn't old enough even though I had the income. And then there was well, your income needs a little bit higher. There was all these ups and downs and obstacles that just kept getting in the way of me pursuing the goals that I had put before myself. So when that started happening, I started, you know, I was already going to church. I was already, you know, doing the Christian duties and dedicating myself to the walk of, I call it the walk of Christ, you know. And it felt like I just wasn't, you know, just wasn't making the progress that I wanted to make. So I started, originally started by reading the Bible. I was reading it every day. You know, I literally started from the first page and I just would keep reading. And then I started keeping a journal about what I read. And one thing that I learned just in the few months, it took about 6 months before it finally hit me that it wasn't enough for me to just read about the Bible, but it was important for me to understand how to apply what I read, or at least see how things that were occurring in the Bible could be utilized in my life, or it could be used as an example of what I was going through and how to handle the things that I was going through in my life. So, um, to sum it up in a quick reference, The reason why I chose to get to know Jesus is because I wanted to have more wisdom than I did knowledge. So I'm not going to be spitting, I'm not the type of person that goes around the definition of this or the definition of that. I'm just a real person with emotions and my thoughts and my opinions. 90% of this is my opinion and my spiritual walk experience. So for me, knowledge came easy. You read a book, you learn something, you regurgitate it or you execute it, and boom, you got it, right? Wisdom is very different. Wisdom actually sticks with you longer. It allows you to absorb what you've learned, execute it, but also pass it along. So a lot of things that you learn knowledge wise, you really can't pass it on unless that person is in a position to be able to understand what you're saying. For example, I'm not an IT person. I'm not a computer savvy person. So if someone learned about a computer, who knows about computers, who went to school for computer science or computer technology, they could come to me and start talking about computers. I wouldn't have no clue. I'd be like, yeah. Oh, okay, that's what that means. That would be my response because it would go over my head. But wisdom is something that you can pass on to not just your family and friends, but you can even pass that on through generations of, descendant. Like, for example, my daughter is very, very intelligent, and I feel like her intelligence is part of her hereditary DNA makeup, however you want to say it. Um, And a lot of the things that I grew up learning or grew up raised under, the morals and values that I cherish, was passed on through her. Like, for example, having compassion. She's an extremely compassionate person. And I feel like that was something that I learned under wisdom. I carry it with me in my heart. And because I carry it with me in my heart, when I conceived my daughter and I carried my daughter and I practiced wisdom or I practiced the use of it, I feel like I was able to pass it on to her. Now, everybody, you have your own opinion on that, but that's just how I feel. Um, so I wanted to increase my wisdom. I wanted to be able to learn things that will move forward in life even after I'm gone. So I felt like the only way I could get that was by getting to know Jesus. And one of the examples is when I realized the understanding of the purpose of a blessing. When Jesus bless you, he doesn't just bless you with the actual object or thing that you're seeking. He also provides you with a comfort of reassurance that He's your provider. That came from wisdom because in the process of me learning about Him, I was able to um, go through this journey of purchasing a home. That was one of the things I was like, okay, Lord, while I'm learning about you, these are a couple of things, because the Bible says, asking you shall receive. And that was one of the things that I really wanted for my family. I wanted us to have a home my kids could call their own. And so after doing it my way for several years, no luck, literally just was roadblocked every way. Um, I started reading the Bible, and then I started on this process, and he started giving me insight, to things that I did not know about purchasing a home. And he started putting people in my life that had knowledge of purchasing a home. And that helped me to gain my home, which I own today. Um, but not only did it help me gain my home, but that the journey that he took me on, and how he, what's the word I want to use? How he laid the plan out. So, like, that's one of the amazing things about getting to know Jesus is that when you start working on things, he lays the plan out and you can kind of see the plan unfold. And then when you come up on obstacles, you're not just stuck in a roadblock like, okay, what do I do? What do I do? Like, is it done? Do I need to stop? You don't question yourself if you're on the right path, because once you get to a roadblock, you're going to say, okay, I was aware that this was going to happen. I allowed this to happen because now I want you to see what I can do with you following me. And so during the process of me purchasing my home, I wasn't working. I went from working an extremely high paying job to quitting that job uh, per God's commandment. And so I know I'm a radical believer too. So after prayer, a lot of prayer, a lot of meditation, and a lot of conversations with my husband, I had decided to step back from my job because I was just, like I said, I was in this place where I was trying to get somewhere in life and I just felt like I wasn't going there. And so God was like, I need some alone time with you. And during that time, he was like, stop working, because that was my primary focus. And it shouldn't have been, but it was my primary focus. And he wanted me to step back from that, and instead of leaning on work, instead of leaning on a paycheck, he wanted me to lean on him. And so I did that. I stopped working. I slowly started looking into going back to school, and then we started working on the house. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, I'm not even working and you're telling me to go look for a home. Like, that was very adventurous. But by the time I signed the papers and we closed on our house, I was so in awe of the journey of seeing God move, literally move things out of the way, how he was elevating me and my family, how he was working within my children, and how he allow things to be. Even when it looked like it wasn't going to happen, he would just give me the spirit of comfort. He would send the Holy Spirit to comfort me and say, "Don't worry, I'm doing this. I'm controlling this. Allow me to do it, and watch what I do." And he did. He allowed it to be. So I gained wisdom of understanding during that time that sometimes when we're on a journey, or when we're in a position to where we are used to doing things a certain way, we're used to being planners, or we're used to having habits, or repeating the same steps over and over, or going through a cycle of life. God has a way of stepping in and allowing you to bring yourself out of that cycle, especially if you don't like the outcome of it. He will bring you out of it and allow you to take the road that he has for you, which would then put you in a position to make progress. So one of the whys of getting to know Jesus and why it's important is so you can gain that wisdom. And wisdom can come from, mentors and mentees, but the wisdom you get from God, the wisdom you get from having a conversation with Jesus, trust and believe, it will stay with you forever. You will use it in your everyday life. Um, the main thing that I got during that time was understanding what it really meant for him to be a sole provider for me and my family. So, with that experience and that portion of my journey, I learned how to understand that these jobs that I get, these careers that I have, are only temporary. My true providing source of income, my source of living, comes from Jesus. So while you're on your journey, I hope you get to experience the same thing that I experienced during that time, which is the wisdom, understanding the difference between the two. And I hope that it brings you the same amount of joy that it brought me.